Some grand things right there. It's the way laughter fills the room when everybody's finally home. It's old stories getting told again, and somehow they still feel new. It's the peace that came from letting go, the smile that shows up out of nowhere. When I slow my pace and take it in, I realize I got more than I thought I had. I don't rush past the blessing anymore. Don't treat the good like it's small. Life taught me joy don't always shine. Sometimes it's softly calls. These are the grand things, the kind that make your chest feel full. The grand things, the love that stayed, the moments that pulled me through. It ain't about having everything figured out. It's noticing what's already here right now. Yes, these are the grand things, and I'm grateful for them. It's the wisdom earned from living, not rushing who I'm meant to be. It's learning how to celebrate the version of me standing here. It's family checking in just because, and joy showing up unplanned. Funny how the biggest parts of life were right here in my hands. I used to think grand meant far away, somewhere I had it gone. Turns out grand was walking with me all along. These are the grand things, the smiles that don't need a reason why. The grand things, the quiet wins that don't make headlines. It ain't about the past, no, racing ahead. It's gratitude, living where my feet are planted. Yeah, these are the grand things, and I choose to stand in them. Always loud. Sometimes it's still, sometimes it's a deep breath. Or laughing until you can't sit still. If you pause long enough, you'll see what I mean. There's a whole lot of grand in the life you're already living. These are the grand things. The life I'm living, the love I know, the way grace keeps helping me grow. I don't need perfect, I don't need more plans. I just need to recognize where I stand. Yeah, these are the grand things I'm standing in, and I'm standing in them. Take a look at your life. Don't rush past it. There's something grand right there. Hey, everybody. Guess what? It's time to grandstand. I hope you all enjoyed grand things. Yes, these are the grand things in your life that we are grateful for. So everybody that's on here on tonight, I love that song. It's beautiful. Thank you, Trey. Thank you. I hope you've been listening to it on YouTube, on the Other Mother Thresa channel. Go over there. If you are not a subscriber, go over there, listen to all the songs. But that one is definitely a favorite of mine because it reminds me and reminds everyone about the grand things that we have in our lives, the things that we should not be taken for granted. Not necessarily the big, huge things, but it is the grand things. Grand things don't have to mean that it's over the top. It's just grand. So, welcome, everybody. I am the Other Mother Thresa from East Texas, Nacogdoches to be exact, and I welcome you all tonight for another episode of Grandstanding with the Other Mother Thresa. You can catch me on YouTube live 7 o'clock on Tuesdays, or you can catch me here on Facebook live on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. Sometimes I'm running a little bit behind, but I'm just so glad that you all are able to be with me on tonight. Well, guess what? We're going to talk about
We're going to kind of continue to build on what I was talking about on last week about having permission to change, to make some changes in your life. And if you all notice, that's what I've been kind of talking about most of this year is about change and how you need to give yourself permission to change, but also not only giving yourself permission to change, but to enjoy the change that you're making in your life. And remember, I share with y'all, just because you're making changes, that doesn't mean that everybody is excited about the changes that you're making in your life. And that is quite all right, okay? Because guess what? We're making changes to benefit us and to make our lives easier, better, more productive. And so when you start making changes, guess what? Most of the time, the changes just doesn't happen overnight. Most of the time, I got to go. See you later. I love you. All right, Shekinah, I love you too. Most of the time, the changes that you're making, it just didn't happen overnight. Most of the time, it's kind of been a buildup. It's kind of been a buildup of the things that you've been going through in your life. And you've just kind of gotten to the point where you say, okay, you know what? I need to do something about what's happening in my life right now. Okay. I need to do something about the things that is no longer serving me, or the things that I've had a desire, I've had a dream, or I have set a goal and I haven't been able to reach this. Well, guess what I'm going to talk about? I'm going to make this personal tonight. If you saw my advertisement or my Facebook post, I shared that we were going to talk about change, personal change as it relates to me. I'm going to make it personal. I'm going to give you my testimony. Some of you all have definitely heard my testimony before when I talked about moving from Nacogdoches to Baytown, about how that all came about. But I'm going to go back a little bit further. For those of you all who do not know, that the month of March is Social Work Month. And so we have a whole month to celebrate the great things that social workers do. And because we are celebrating Social Work Month, and I am a social worker. I have been a social worker since 1995. That's as long as some of you all that are listening, that's longer than you've been in this world. But I've been a social worker for that length of time, and I absolutely love it. I love being a social worker. I love being able to do the things that I do that make an impact on the lives of other people. And I will tell you that as a social worker, I believe that the burden and the passion of being a social worker was born out of the experiences that I had growing up in Oak Hill Plaza. And I'm just going to try to walk you through my story. Hello, I think I spoke to everybody, but just hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Thank you for the hearts. I know my mom is on here. I know my children, grandchildren, my honey is on here. My niece is on here. Nieces are on here. I saw Trey. I saw Miracle. And so in all the rest of the people that are here, if I don't know your name, hey, put something in the chat and tell me hi. And so I can at least know to shout you out. But growing up in Oak Hill Plaza, which is the projects, as a little girl, one of the things that I noticed is that there was a lady that lived not in Oak Hill Plaza. She lived on what we considered as Burgess Hill. And I didn't know what Miss Bertie Bell Wade did. I didn't know what her job was. But I saw this African-American lady, middle-aged lady, who would come to visit my neighbor, Miss Brooks, Mabel Brooks. And she would come to visit her, but she would also visit some of the other people that were in the neighborhood. And I knew she would always talk to people, and she was always seemed like she was digging into their business. And so, but let me tell you one thing. the people that she was talking to, they would always respond because they knew that she was trying to help them. Either she was trying to help get them resources or help them to be able to solve some problem that they were having. And I really liked that. Now, as a child, I didn't know what her profession was. I didn't know what it was called. I just knew that she was able to talk to people, and sometimes her mannerisms were a little bit different, but that was Miss Birdie Bell. That's what we called her, Miss Birdie Bell. And I know Mama knows who I'm talking about. Probably a lot of you all know who I'm talking about if you're from the Nacogdoches area. But I found out later that she was a social worker. And I was like, you know what? I like to talk. My mom has always said that I would talk to anybody. Matter of fact, she used to tell me to stop talking to people, just be quiet. And I recall her telling me a story about there was a gentleman that would come to the house. I think he was maybe the insurance guy. You all know back in the day, your parents and your grandparents had that insurance policy that they kept hanging on the wall with the nail in the wall or a hook or something, that the insurance guy would come to the house and they would collect your premiums and write on that little card and then put it back up where they got it from. Well, Mom said that I was always talking to people, and I would always talk to this guy. And she would try to hush me, try to like, stop talking to people. And he told her or shared with her, let her talk. You just never know what she may become. Just let her talk. And Mom said that, that was pretty much, she kind of, backed away from making me be quiet. And as you can see, Mom, I'm still talking. I'm still talking to everybody. She told me not too long ago, she said, Thresa, you just talk so much and you just talk about everything and you could just go on and on and on. And she was like, where do you get that from? Why do you, whatever. So Mom, I'm still talking. And, but as a social worker, that's what a lot of what I've done over the years since 1995 and even beyond that, before that, is that, being a social worker has really afforded me a lot of, it has afforded me to be able to do a lot of great things for people and for my family. And it is the knowledge of being able to get information and to be able to walk alongside of people who are having probably some of the most difficult. Yep, she's yet talking. Yes, honey. Yes, I am yet talking. But anyway, it affords me to be able to, walk alongside people, to be able to stand in the gap for them, but also figure out what are some of the challenges that they are having. And then to go to work to try to see how I can help, remedy those challenges. As a social worker, we have to work in systems. We have to be able to know the different systems that exist, that's helpful for clients, for children, for families, for parents, for anyone, and know how these systems work and how to navigate those systems. Because let me just tell you, being a social worker is really about navigating systems and seeing how you can figure them out. But a lot of times, you're right, you do, honey, being able to figure out those systems, because a lot of times it's not laid out there for everybody to be able to just know about them. Some of the systems that we have and some of the programs that are available to different people, you kind of have to know how to really dig for yourself, because they don't give you all the information up front. Matter of fact, we just found out about a program for my mom that I had no idea that they were able to help with the types of help that my mom needed, because we only thought that they did certain things. But when you start investigating those things, and you find out that, hey, yeah, they do a whole lot of other things. So my testimony, how did I get started in this? I kind of gave you a little bit of I think where my first introduction to social work was, what a social worker is. And then I had the honor of meeting two social workers that really impacted my life when I was probably a freshman in college and even before. And that was, her name was Gail Wilson at the time, which was later Gail Culpepper, who we shared grandchildren. But I met Gail and Nina Jackson Green at Stephen F. Austin years and years and years ago. Two more African American women who were just phenomenal. These were ladies who I looked up to, I learned a lot from. But what I noticed with those ladies, especially with Gail, is I noticed her heart for people, and her always going the extra mile for people to make sure that people had what they needed. And at that particular time, I don't think Gail was working in the mental health field. I'm not sure which field she was working in, but it was not the mental health. And Nina Jackson Green was actually a professor at Stephen F. Austin. And so when I met her, she was one that, like I said, I was doing, I think, my first college work study, and I met her. But then another social worker that was closer to home was Al-Marie Henderson. And Al-Marie was a social worker, one that I could really talk to, get some information, and I was always just so thrilled to, first of all, Al-Marie is a cousin, and to be able to watch how she navigated the social work in the medical field. So I have a wide variety of people or social workers who I was connected with and who was able to really be mentors to me. So let me kind of keep moving this story along. So as I was in school at Stephen F. Austin, one of the things that I was working on, trying to get a degree in, was sociology. And I was thinking, okay, sociology, yeah, that's the study of people, but it really wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to do social work. And so I was able to change my major, and I was able to get into the social work program. But let me tell you, before all of this started happening, I was 18 years old, went to school at Stephen F. Austin, straight out of high school, stayed there for about a year, and I was like, you know what? I already had my daughter Net, and I was thinking, you know what? I need to be working. I need to be making money. I need to be doing other things. And school was not really high on my list at that time. So I decided that after that first semester, I was like, you know what? I'm going to call this quits, and I am going to come back at a later time when my mind was more in tune to what I needed to do. And let me tell y'all, people, listen, when you are young, when you do not have responsibilities, you're not married, you don't have children, if you have an opportunity to go to school, please do it at that time, because when life starts lifing, as people like to say, then sometimes it takes you a really long time to get back in school, or you don't ever do it at all. Well, let me just tell you, that was 1982. It was 1992 before I decided that, hey, I've got to go back and I've got to finish this degree. And let me tell you what prompted that. In 1991, I was offered a position as a paraprofessional. A lot of people call them teacher aides, but I think the name now is paraprofessional. They may have another name. I'm not sure what it's called. But anyway, I was hired to work for Nacogdoches County Co-op to work with one student. And this was a special needs student. And so my friend that I had met a couple of years prior to that, Mary Barreca, it was Mary Smith at that time. Oh, she may have already been married. No, Mary Smith Barreca. Anyway, so she had called me and she said, hey, Theresa, there's a position open. Would you like to come and work as a paraprofessional? I was like, sure, I'll give it a try. Well, that first year that I was working in the classroom as a paraprofessional, what I was noticing is that there were some gaps in the services that these special needs children were receiving. And I was thinking, you know what? These students, they need to go to the doctor. They need resources. They need this. They need that. They need in-home family supports. All those things that these young people needed. But guess what? Their parents did not know how to access them. They did not even realize that there were programs out there that were free, that they could sign up and get on waiting lists and get these in-home family supports, that they could get modifications for their vehicles, like for their vans, that they could have, those wheelchair ramps that were built into them, all those different types of things. And so as I was noticing all of those different gaps, what I decided to do was to go back and finish my degree, because I was thinking, okay, there are no social workers in the schools. There were no social workers at that time, even in NISD. And I was in Nacogdoches working for the county schools, and I decided, let me go ahead and finish this degree. Well, I finished my degree. And before I finished my degree, what I did is I was starting to think, okay, well, since there is no social worker, let me propose to my special ed director about having a position as a school social worker. Now, again, I'm in East Texas, rural East Texas. There are no school social workers anywhere around, not in the Nacogdoches area, not in any of those places that were close by me. And so what I started doing is I started contacting Houston, Dallas, Austin schools, and I began to just call them and just really just using my mouth to get answers about what a social worker did in the schools, how was their day structured, what types of forms and what types of did they have a school social work manual, just all of those types of questions that I was asking. And the key thing that I was asking also was, what is their salary? Because if you follow me any length of time, remember, or you may not know, but my first job as a para, thank God for my husband working and having a really good job. But my salary for working as a para was $7,500 per year. No, not per month, not per week, per year. And I worked every single day for the school year, and that was probably like 187 days. Yes, if that's unbelievable, put unbelievable. $7,500. That's what I made the entire year. And there was a cap at that time for paraprofessionals that if I stayed in that position, I would never make over $12,000, I think $500. I think, yes, $12,500 was the cap for a paraprofessional. Needless to say, when I was contacting the cities, the ISDs in Houston, Dallas, all those, Austin, I was asking the question, what does a school social worker make? And so they were telling me the salaries, and I was like, oh yes, this sounds really good to me. And so what I did is I put all of that into a proposal. And yes, unbelievable. I put all of that into a proposal. I was gathering everything, and I had one of those big, like 2-inch white notebook binders. That binder is probably still somewhere here, in my possessions. But I started gathering that information and putting everything in there. And so, and when I went to visit with the director at that time, and I was sharing with her, and I was saying, I'm almost finished with my social work degree. And these are some of the gaps that I'm seeing in our program with the families. And this is how I can be a benefit to our students and their families. Well, let me just say, the first time I asked for that director, she said, I don't think so. I don't think that there is a need for a school social worker. But see, she didn't have the drive that I had. God didn't give it to her. He gave it to me. And just as I was like, oh, I cannot believe that she doesn't see the need. But guess what? She wasn't in the classroom every day. She was in another building in the city, and she didn't have to see the everyday happenings that I was seeing in the classroom. And so I was like, okay, all right, well, I'm just going to keep plugging along. And what happened was she retired at the end of that year. She retired at the end of that year. And so what I did is when they hired the new special ed director, guess what I did, you all? We're talking about permission to grow, permission to change. And I knew that, guess what? If God had given me this, then I could not just accept that no and just leave it alone. What I did is I came back with that same proposal, kind of tweaked it a little bit, and I came back with that same proposal and I presented it to our new director. His name was Fred Shoemake. And so from somewhere from Louisiana, a retired athletics coach or football coach or whatever. But when I shared the information with him, you all, he was so excited about the possibility. Now, I'm going to tell you what he did tell me. He said, Ms. Caldwell, I don't know what a school social worker does. I don't know what salary a school social worker makes. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about a school social worker. But from the information that you have shared with me, it sounds like we could use one. And so that's all I needed to hear. And so what he shared with me, he said, okay, let's put it together. And I don't even know if I had to go before the board. I don't know. I really can't remember any of that. But what I do recall him saying, okay, now I was working at the time in one of the county schools in Martinsville. So I was located at Martinsville ISD. And so, but our main building, or our central admin office, was actually in Nacogdoches. And so he began to ask me, he said, well, where do you think you need to be housed? And I said, I need to be housed at central admin. Well, you all, this was back in 94, I think. And first of all, they had never had a social worker. Okay. Never had a social worker. They never had an African-American working at central admin for that, for Nacogdoches County Co-op. So I became the first social worker. I became the first African-American to work in the central admin office. And he also asked me, he said, so tell me what you're going to do. What is your day going to look like? And I began to lay out what my day was going to look like. We had at that time, I think 8 different districts that were in part of the co-op, and how I would spend my time at the different campuses, how I would work with the different kids. And then the last thing, or maybe not the last thing, it may have been one of the first things he asked me, he said, so what do you think your salary should be? Oh my goodness, I was waiting for that. Because at that time, back in 94, what they were telling me in the big cities is that they were making, starting salary was like $40,000 for a social worker that worked 187 days. And so the salary that I proposed was in that range, a little bit over, because I wanted to give a little bit over in case he said, oh, we're going to have to scale back. And he said, well, that sounds good. And I was like, well, okay. So look at what happened I went from making my base salary of $7,500 for a school year to over $40,000. Okay. Back during that time, that was quite a bit of money. And I was thrilled. I was excited. But what I also knew was that my life and the lives of those children were about to change, because here I am being able to offer resources to students and families that they had never had before, never been able to tap into. And so I'm so very grateful that God had given me the opportunity to begin at that time. Now, remember I told you that there were no social workers in NISD either. And so they came later, after we were able to put some things to kind of help with that as well. But I was the first social worker in the Nacogdoches area. But then for the school districts, okay? So then what happened was the Nacogdoches ISD, they had their alternative education program, where there were these kids, you know what a AEP, or they call them a lot of different things. But anyway, it was for the students who had been removed from their primary campus because of some student code of conduct that they had broken. And so they did not have a social worker or anyone to provide groups for those students. So guess what? My director, being the smart man that he is, and I think Mr. Shoemaker is still with us. But what happened was NISD proposed to subcontract with me one day out of the week. And that was, I think it may have been on Fridays. So they helped to pay some more of my salary for me to come over and provide groups for those students one day out of the week. Now, this is, I saw my husband say, a true trailblazer. You all, God was just really just laying out the plan that I had no idea what any of this stuff was going to happen. But what I did know is that he was preparing me. He had given me the know-how, the knowledge to do this, and he gave me some experiences. And those experiences is what I brought to Baytown with me. After years of working as a school social worker, and like I said, I absolutely love the job because there are students that I met in those county schools: Garrison, Etowah, Woden, Central Heights, Cushion, Douglas. It was 8 of them. I'm missing a couple. But all of those different counties, Nacogdoches County, I worked the entire Nacogdoches County. And then God opened up another door for me, because not only was I working as a school social worker, but I also met some great people there who also was able to help me to tap into being able to provide social work services and secure contracts to work for or contract with Child Protective Services. And so I was able to get contracts with them and being able to do a lot of great things for not only the people that lived in the county, but then I was tapped into another market as a social worker of working with Child Protective Services, creating programs, creating projects, opening up my own business in Nacogdoches Family Network of East Texas, and just being able to do a lot of great things. But my topic, I was sharing about growth and change. And what I said I wanted to talk about is going from being a school social worker on one campus to being in an admin position. You all, when God has gifted you and when God has given you something to do, he will definitely make room for you at the table. And when I came to Goose Creek or came to Baytown, I came to Baytown to work as a school social worker. Now, little did I know that it was for 4 positions. I thought it was just one position. And let me tell you all, when I say I walked into that interview and I was letting them know that, hey, I've been waiting for you all to call me. I need this position and Goose Creek needs me. I need you, you need me, and we're just going to make it happen. But also what I did is I stepped out on faith. In the first interview, I let them know that I am a better administrator, that I know about systems. I know how I'm a leader, all of those different things. And I shared with them, I said, if there is ever an opportunity for me to be the director of my department, I would love to have that opportunity. I said, because I know how to create programs. I built my own program from the ground up. And listen, you all, the position, I have a master's degree in counseling. My master's degree is not in social work. And that's what they were looking for. But guess what? I got the job, okay? Because you had to have a master's degree. They were looking for a master's degree in social work. Mine was a master's degree in counseling. I got the job. So let me just tell you, listen, these jobs may say that they require one thing, but you go in there and you sell yourself, okay? You sell what you have. And so, I was telling my husband, I said, yes, I did tell them that, listen, I'm going to start right here because I know you're going to hire me. Because this was a new program and they had no clue about what a social worker did in the schools, because guess what? Goose Creek had never had social workers either. So I was telling them, oh yes, I can build a program. I can do this. I can do that. And I had the nerve to tell them that, listen, when it's an opportunity that's coming, that when the time comes for you to have a person that is over this department, guess what? I want the opportunity to do that because I know that I'm equipped to do it. So I stayed in that position. They hired me as a social worker. I did that for about, I think, 4 years. And when the opportunity came for a coordinator of the department, God blessed me to be able to step right into that newly created position. Now, let me just tell you, when I was working as a social worker with my peers, my other social worker friends, I was the only one that really had the administrative background. And so I was older. So I was typically the lead person, even though it was not necessarily on paper. I pretty much, started doing all of those things. And let me just tell you all, the very first year that I came to Goose Creek in April. And the offer was so good that I was like, you know what? I'm going now. I cannot wait until May, at the next school year. I actually came at the end of the school year. But one of the things that they gave me an opportunity to do was, because this was a new position and a new department for social workers, they did not have any type of manual for school social workers. So here I go again. I am creating policies and procedures and different things like that for now another school district. So when I tell you the experiences that God gives you and blesses you to have, and along the way, just take those and put them in your toolkit, because guess what? All of those things will come up again. If you just be really mindful that everything that you're doing now may have, you may have an opportunity to use it again. get all the skills that as necessary. Get all the skills that you can get all the knowledge that you can get. I was sharing with someone today. I went to the doctor's office, and I overheard some two young ladies talking about getting back in school and everything. And I encouraged them. I said, listen, you're never too old. You're never too old to learn. Give it a try, and I guarantee you, one lady said your life will be different in 2 years. I said, oh, absolutely, your life will be different by the time you finish, because God gives us these opportunities to grow. He gives us these opportunities to change. And so in the position that I am now, I am what would a lot of people would call central admin staff. And that means that I am a district administrator, and I operate as the coordinator for behavior and mental health. Now, I've shared with you all a lot about the department that I lead, that I oversee, and it's a great group of women and men that we are making sure, or we're trying to ensure the mental health, the social health, the social emotional, mental, it's mostly mental health, you all, that our children are well. So let me just tell you, for any social workers that are listening right now, and you're just starting out, you're in school or you're just starting out, and you're wanting to get to the next level. You're at the campus right now, but you're thinking, okay, I've spent all this money to get this degree. I don't want to just stop right here. Well, I'm going to just tell you, you don't have to just stop right there. God will make room for you at the table. Conduct yourself in always a professional manner. Make sure that you carry yourself like a child of God, okay? And professional. Make sure that you're representing him well, and you're representing yourself well. Also representing the occupation as being a social worker. Being a social worker is we have our own code of ethics. We have our things that we are to abide by. And those are things that I take very seriously. They just so happen to line up with my beliefs, my moral beliefs, and the things that I hold dear. And so it's not hard for me being a social worker. It's not hard for me to adjust and do the things that I know that is becoming of a social worker, because it's also the things that I do as becoming a child of God. And then also Everlene's daughter, and I think about that and the things that she has taught me, the example that she has set before me. I want to make my mom proud, okay? I want to make my family proud. But when I think about the person that I want to make proud the most in this world that is living is my mother. And so when I think, Mom, that I have done that to the best of my ability. And so guess what, you all? If I can do it, you can too. So no matter what profession that you're in, I just so happen to be talking about social work because this week is School Social Work Week. And this whole month is Social Work Month. I have experience not only in the schools, but I have, the mental health background. I've done medical social work. Thanks to Anne-Marie Henderson, who gave me an opportunity to be a medical social worker. And I learned a lot of things that I did not realize that I was going to need. But the social workers that have been in my life, I just want to say, served as mentors. I just want to say thank you all for the great stance and also being a great role model, because I've seen some social workers in my days, and I am just like, hey, you're not living up to the code of ethics. You cannot be. But the ones that God has blessed me to be my mentors, I thank you all so very much for, the role that you had in my life. And for all of the other social workers, I hope that you are, first of all, thank you for the service that you've done, that you do every single day. No one else may thank you, but I am thanking you, from one social worker to another, or to others. Thank you all for the work that you do. And hopefully during this month, during this week, your peers, the people that you work with, your coworkers, the students, they're your customers, your clients. Someone would say thank you for the work that you're doing. And I just want to say, for everybody else, whatever profession that you are in, do your best. Learn as much as you possibly can. There is always going to be opportunities for growth. There's always going to be opportunities for you to move to the next level in a lot of the positions or the places that you work. If it is not, if you cannot grow and if you cannot advance in the place that you work, then, and that is something that you want to do. Now, some people are fine. You may already be the boss. You may already be at the top of level of where you can go. And that is okay. But if it is not, I'm going to tell you that there is always other places to be. Move around a little bit, explore. I had to move out of my city in order for me to be able to do what I'm doing now. I think about Nacogdoches and where the school district, and if I was still in Nacogdoches, what would I be doing? I don't know, but I thank God that He has given me an opportunity to spread my wings and to be able to get this experience, because it has been not only a blessing to me, but it's been a blessing to my family. And I feel like that I've been a blessing to a lot of people that God has put in my path. And so with that being said, I'm going to say that you all have a great night. Thank you all for listening to my testimony. And some of you all have testimonies that are probably similar to mine. And if you have testimonies, y'all let me know about it. Y'all tell me about the things that's going on, the grand things that's happening in your life. Honey, I can't get this computer to turn on, so I need grand things. I need you to pull it up for me. But you all tell me, yeah, Miss Eveline is proud of her daughter. I saw Mama put in the hearts up. Thank you, Mama. That lets me know that you are definitely proud of your daughter. Your very talkative daughter. Thank you, Aunt Theresa. I am more grateful than for you and your services. You are so very, you're so very welcome, Miracle. Let me tell you, what God has given me, I try to make sure that I share with other people, because guess what? It's not going to do me any good. There are a lot of things that I know about, but it's not for me. This information may not be for me right now, but guess what? It may be for you. It may be something that you need to hear about, and you need to know that these are things that can help you. So guess what? If I know about it, I'm going to open my mouth and I'm going to speak about it. All right, everybody. Thank you all so very much. Honey, you've got grand things ready? Y'all, my executive producer, he's slipping. He's in here just looking at me smiling, and he didn't get the music ready. Let me see what we're gonna do. But let me just tell y'all another thing, you all. My story is not all that unusual. It's really not. When I think about it, and I think about it in the grand scheme of things, my story is not all that unusual. Some of you all have some unusual stories as well. And God has done some miraculous things in your lives. And sometimes the things that happens in our lives, we don't think about them as being grand. We think of them as being mediocre or small. But as the song says, it's the grand things. Sometimes you just got to stop and think about it. Look at your life. There are some grand things right there, okay? And as my sister Cynthia often says, good night, grandstanders. We'll see y'all the next time. Y'all, my executive producer is over there dancing. Y'all want to see? Yeah, he gonna run out of the room. Honey, come over here and wave to the people.
just feel full. The grand things, the love that stayed, the moments that pulled me through. It ain't about having everything figured out. It's noticing what's already here right now. Yeah, these are the grand things, and I'm grateful for them. It's the wisdom earned from living, not rushing who I'm meant to be. It's learning how to celebrate the version of me standing here. It's family checking in just because, and joy is showing up unplanned. Funny how the biggest parts of life were right here in my hands. I used to think grand meant far away, somewhere I hadn't gone. Turns out grand was walking with me all along. These are the grand things.
Love you too, Miracle.
Don't need a reason why. The grand things, the quiet wins that don't make headlines. It ain't about the past or racing ahead. It's gratitude living where my feet are planted. Yeah, these are the grand things, and I choose to stand in them. And always loud. Sometimes it's still, sometimes it's a deep breath. Or laughing until you can't sit still. If you pause long enough, you'll see what I mean. There's a whole lot of grand in the life you're already living. These are the grand things. The life I'm living, the love I know, the way grace keeps helping me grow. I don't need perfect, I don't need more plans. I just need to recognize where I stand. Yeah, these are the grand things. I'm standing in them. I'm
Take it
standing
down a little
in them.
bit. You all, I got so excited. I forgot to pray. God, thank you for this journey. Thank you for the roads that that have shaped us to be who we are and the doors that you've opened for us. Give us the courage to grow. Give us clarity in our transition and help us to trust the calling on our lives, even when it expands. Amen and amen. And listen, if you're a social worker watching this or just anyone else, and you need a little bit of encouragement along the way, don't forget about Get Soul Notes. We have Get Soul Notes that is a daily text message delivered right to your cell phone every single day for a low subscription price of $7.99 each month. You can have daily hope delivered every single day. All right? Y'all have a great night. Bye-bye, everybody.
Smiles that don't need a reason why. The grand things, the quiet wins that don't make headlines. It ain't about the past or racing ahead. It's gratitude living where my feet are planted.
Yes, these are the grand things.
And I choose to stand in them. And always loud. Sometimes it's still, sometimes it's a deep breath. Or laughing until you can't sit still. If you pause long enough, you'll see what I mean. There's a
All right,
whole
Miss
lot
Candace. You got them sugars with you?
already living. These are the
Grand things. Life is living.
the love I know, the way grace keeps helping me grow. I don't need perfect, I don't need more plans. I just need to recognize where I stand.
Yes, these are the grand things.
I'm standing in them, and I'm standing in them.
All right, everybody. Oh, the sugar's not with us tonight.
Don't rush past it.
All right. Good night, everybody. There is something grand right there. We'll see you on the next week so you can tell me about your grand things. Good night, everybody.
Booking.com has